Good morning, friends. I'm sitting off in the corner like this, so the computer isn't focused on me, and so it's focused, except when I put my hands up, and it gets focused on my hands, maybe. But anyway, so that water shows up in the background, which is primarily what I find useful to stare at when I'm sitting out here, even though I've got it to my back, but I get to. I get to stare at this fairly frequently. It's been quite a life and quite a day already, and yesterday was quite a day as well. Over the past few weeks, I'm going to say I've been working with a situation in my own physical body. Um, could have been a month, but in that period of time, probably 3 to 4 weeks, um, I've been having some sinus congestion, which has led to a eustachian tube being blocked, which has led to fluids building up in my left ear, which has led to some vertigo, disorientation, inability to hear, which my life partner says that it's not a new problem, but I think that's more of an inability to listen as opposed to an inability to hear. So we may all have a little bit of intentional deafness at times where we just don't want to hear what a person's saying, so we go, what? What? Anyway, my feeling about life, so we may as well get right into the crux of what matters. I was in the chiropractic healing profession, chiropractor 44 years, healing profession 50 years, starting off with something called Touch for Health in the 72 or so maybe 52 years. I started working with the healing process with my friends who would let me practice on them. But gosh, I've had a few illnesses in my life which kind of laid me out. My understanding is I was around 6 or 7 when I guess I either had it's questionable because what did doctors know, not doctor know, but doctors know back then. So I would have been 6 or 7 years old, so maybe 1957. And it may have been that I had meningitis. It may have been that I had a reaction to penicillin. That was the diagnosis, that I'd been given penicillin, but I'm sure I was given penicillin for meningitis. And why I had meningitis is another question. It would have been around that time. So my mother was one of the original anti-vaxxers. She was an anti-vaxxer in the 50s. What is termed now an anti-vaxxer, what was termed then as was called a person who thinks for themselves and questions authorities, especially when it comes to medical authorities, now known as drug dealers. My mother was one of the original anti-drug dealer fascists. Independent in her thinking and willing to fight for the rights of her and her children to have clean blood. But my father, my understanding was that he was in medical school when that's stories. They're all stories. So my understanding was he was in medical school, dropped out to go into the Air Force in Canada to fight in World War II, So that probably, I don't know when Canada may have gotten involved prior to the United States, and I could look it up to see when Canada got involved, but I'm guessing my dad was in there for 4 years, in the Air Force for 4 years, um, at which time my two older brothers were conceived and birthed. So I don't know when he got out, probably would have been about 1945 or 46. So maybe he was in 41 to 42. Be it as it may, I was vaccinated twice against my mother's wishes. One time when I was going into kindergarten, and they just lined us up. They had no permission from the parents. They just lined us up, and we had to walk behind the kid in front of us. We had to walk behind all the kids in front of us before going into kindergarten. It was an entry into kindergarten vaccine. It's the one that left a scar in your arm. I didn't know any better. My mom didn't know it was even happening. Nowadays, they would maybe say that you had to receive this vaccine in order to go to school. And if you didn't, I think they have this in California now after the incident at Disneyland where there was a measles outbreak. That was supposed to be two measles outbreak. After it was discovered that Orange County had the least compliance for vaccines, so the outbreak just happened to occur not too long after in Orange County, and then became a state law that everyone had to be vaccinated to go to public school in California. That's the way it works, It's like drug dealers; they're just good at their game, and they make a lot of money. So they control medical schools, governments, all sorts of things. So I don't know if I'll even post this because I feel like it's more useful for me to take the higher road and suggest, the higher energetics as our focus, and not these disturbed energies that are surrounding the world right now. And the whole world seems to be a bit chaotic in terms of what people believe and how much fighting they're doing over the internet through social media. I did a written post earlier today, which I made a link to an interview with Abigail Disney, which is just fascinating. I'm fed a lot of these interviews through YouTube because they know AI knows that I primarily am interested in healing and consciousness, therapeutic resolution of trauma, and frisbee golf. So those are my interests. So those are what pop up. Here you go. Here's more on trauma resolution. Here's more on healing and consciousness. Here's more on frisbee golf. Another video to watch frisbee golf. Doesn't everybody want to watch frisbee golf videos and see people throw a frisbee, actually a disc, 600 feet and have it land within 30 feet of a basket? Who doesn't want to watch that? So anyway, I've been really getting more involved in how to resolve this congestion, blockage, lack of energy moving, and it just so happens that at the same time all this is going on, all these healing sessions that I'm doing for really the past 2 weeks all seem to have to do with grief and loss, because there is a lot of grief and loss going on around the planet. A lot of people seem to be passing away at very unusual ages. Heart attacks in sports with 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds. I just say that I never heard of anyone dying of a heart attack on an athletic field um, in my earlier life. And yet, over the past 4.5 years, this has been happening. Younger and younger people having heart attacks. Who would have guessed? And people are seeking, like, why has this been happening over the past 4.5 years? And one could say, well, because they weren't genetically tested for faulty hearts. like before we had genetic testing, it didn't happen. But now that we have genetic testing, we can explain that, oh, they had a faulty heart genetically. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, these are confusing times. So, I sat down to make a video today because I was able to wash my hair, and it's also warm enough that I can actually sit outside without a hood on. And I was also keeping my head warm. And I could have done the video inside, but who wants to do a video inside when you got this backdrop for a video? And then all you have to have is that tiny head in the corner that doesn't necessarily distract you away from the beauty of nature. And yeah, I'm a beauty of nature too. I mean, aren't we all just beauties of nature? You know? Or, yeah, in relationship with nature. You know, a part of nature. We're humans. We're beings in human forms. And our human forms are natural. Except those that are genetically modified. But, you know, who knows? What's your belief system? What's your thought form about everything? Is your thought form that this is really, really bad, this is really, really good, you really, really should do this, you really, really shouldn't do this, and it's just like poof. Like, are we willing to let go of our beliefs? And our beliefs being right about everything. Because our beliefs, according to my teachers in night school, and I'd highly recommend before you go to sleep at night, you might say, I would like to go to an educational facility in the dream world that would be of my highest good. And the school I go to, that I've gone to for the past 6 years, is the School of Energy Awareness. And it just helps me. They just tell me things. I've been working with these beings for a long time, before this lifetime, but a long time in this lifetime. I mean, I think a lot of the same beings for 13 years in night school, which I go to pretty much every night. You know, there's that part of me that just is off to school. I already completed one course, the School for Delinquent Shaman. And you could just make up your meaning for those words. I was there for 7 years, and I either graduated, I don't remember a ceremony, or they just let me out. So it might have been like a kind of a reform school, and maybe you don't necessarily graduate, they just decide that you're able to be released into another educational facility. And we could just call it a mental institution. Like all the major universities, they're just mental institutions. Wouldn't it be interesting if we were able to be in universal heart institutions? An institution of the heart. That's what this educational facility that I provide is an institution for the rehabilitation of the heart and the emotional realm. So what they told me, it was in June of 2020, I was told how to get better at releasing my beliefs. And they were telling me in night school that you really need to let go of your beliefs. And they told me how to do it. So I got videos on it. You can go look them up, but I'll tell you briefly, is when you get triggered emotionally and you hear the story start to be told. And the story is, I'm just seeing which way the hands will go. Whatever the story is, so the story and the emotions. So when a story comes up and you start blah, 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 it just doesn't matter what the words are, that's the story. Blah, 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 yeah, blah, 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 yeah. And all you need to do is, let me get way over here so I can do it. All you need to do is separate the story and the emotions until they're hand width apart. And then they disconnect and you can let go of the emotions. And then let go of the story. Blah, 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 blah. And then you're done with that particular belief. And you just repeat. It's like another belief comes to the surface, throw it in the washer. Let the story come up, let the emotions come up, separate the emotion and the story, release the emotions, release the story. But I have the kind of questioning mind, and so I said, well, you know, if you don't have beliefs, how do you know about reality? And they said, well, you know about reality based on your experiences. And your experiences are much clearer and cleaner and more understandable the fewer beliefs you have. So, you know, is it a belief or is it an experience that people who are dealing with grief oftentimes are dealing with ear issues, eye issues, thyroid issues, lung issues, ovary issues, testicle issues, elbow issues, knee issues? Is it a belief or experience? And I would say, well, it was an experience at first, and then maybe it became a belief, or maybe it became an understanding. And that's probably more of what it became. It became my understanding that when I worked with a particular area of the body, these emotions would tend to come out of that particular part of the body. So one of these days I'll make a video about all the places in the body and what emotions they store. I may have already made one, but I'll make one again, because on some levels I would say that not only do I perceive that I'm getting better at these videos, but that the feedback I'm getting from people that have known me for years is that they're getting better, which may mean that the earlier ones weren't so good. And I actually had one person who appeared to be positively affected by one of the videos that I made recently relative to releasing fear. And that person actually asked me if I was still doing healing sessions with people. And I wrote back in your comment, and I said, yes, I am. But I've actually been doing, I didn't say this, I'm just saying this now. I've actually been doing these videos for 6 months, 7 months, I guess, since mid-December. And I've never had a request for a session. My requests for sessions have always come from my clients' referrals. So I've been, doing primarily energetic healing work for 11 years, 2013, 11 years. And since 2019, only over the phone. Just in the end of 2019, I, for some reason, had a sense of something, and I just decided to stop doing hands-on work with people, because the work over the phone was as effective as anything with me sitting and holding someone's ankles while they release this energy. I can hold their ankles over the phone. It's all a quantum field. But anyway, I got my first request. Session, do you still do healing sessions? And I do, and again, I would say it really happens that when I clear some major stuff, then I get text about sessions. If I'm in the middle of clearing major stuff, nothing. And then I get through something, and then text, session. So it really makes sense to me that if I'm working with grief and loss, even if I'm actively working with it, there tends to be sessions that are so much about grief and loss. And this one person who is going through a personal grief and loss, and she made it as a comment, so I'm not sharing anything that you can't read in a comment, but the person came across my site, and this may all be AI. I mean, this is where I think AI might be really useful, where you're dealing with grief and loss, and AI links you to a person who's done a video about grief and loss, and you watch it, and it helps clear your grief and loss. So it's a kind of cool, even though I'm a little paranoid about, Apple computer and phone, listening in on every private, supposedly, conversation I'm having with someone, which I don't want them necessarily listening to that, but what are my options? I could do it over Skype. Now we have Microsoft, I think, owns Skype now. Now we have Microsoft or Google or whatever listening in on. Who knows? It's really a time for people who may have been paranoid and may want to just give up being paranoid and still be aware that there's things going on, and that maybe they want to leave their phone in their car when they're going in to have a private conversation, and have the other person maybe leave their phone in their car, and then you can get together, and even though all the people in the tables next to you they can listen in on you and probably determine who you are by your voice signature. It's probably like a fingerprint. I don't know, but this is a field day for paranoids. And I would say that I'm a recovered. Why not just say recovered? Why not create the perception within oneself and one's subconscious that one has recovered from a life of paranoia? Why not be over it now? Why not state it? My paranoia, it's in the past, and I'm presently aware that there's lots of things that I can be concerned about if I want to be, but I don't have to be in total fight or flight, and affecting my femur heads, my upper sacrum, my lower rib cage, my kidneys, my adrenals, my small intestine, my shoulders, the base of my skull, or the upper part of my neck, the base of my skull, my jaw, all those areas that are fight or flight areas. So if you just go into fight or flight, so you think about something, that causes you to be fearful, and then notice what your body does. Notice the posture it goes into. This is the fight or flight. It's the same posture, it's the same muscles, it's the same energy that we go into, and some people live in that frozen fight or flight, and they're always saying like, oh, I always injure my shoulders, whatever, and you go, okay, or I can let that go. I can stop being fearful. I can stop watching things on the news or on my computer that make me fearful. I can be concerned about the world, and if there's things I can do to assist change the world, I can do those things. Or I can focus my attention on the one consciousness that's ever present, and I can become more in relationship to that one consciousness and more be the person I came here to be, assisting the world in an energetic fashion. And so that's my choice, and I'm loving this video that I'm making today for you. I was thinking this was going to be a healing video where I set up a healing field, but actually this is a healing video where I don't set up a healing field, because I just set up a healing field because of a request in a comment from one of my videos or one of my posts from a person who I'm guessing is maybe living in Loveland, Colorado, at a place called Sunrise Ranch, where I spent a period of time at in around 1986, 87, probably 87. I know because my son was born in 86, and I spent a period of time in this place, Sunrise Ranch, doing a spiritual education course, taking a spiritual education course. And this lovely place, I don't know how many, 100, 200 acre property, farm, organic farm, buildings, facilities, consciousness raising workshops, is in the path of this fire going on in Colorado. And so I had the request to set up a field to, not for an outcome. So you understand healing fields. Healing fields are not about an outcome that I want. They're all about an outcome that is of the highest good. So there's already a world field always in place, because that was set up at the end of January of 2020. I was asked to set up a world healing field, and I won't go, I've got videos about it. It was really rough in the first, 9 months or the first year and a half were just challenging. And then it got a little easier. And then the past 11 months have been pretty challenging again. But the world healing field is always in place. But I can set up individual fields within the world healing fields based on the outcome being the highest good for that part of Colorado that's dealing with these forest fires, whatever, wildfires, whatever they are. So I was told in the early days of my energy, really focused energy work, so when I began to work with beings that were teaching me how to do energy work, they said, never hold a specific outcome because it limits what's in the highest good. So always hold the outcome that's in the highest good and then accept the outcome. And so that's what I was trained, that's what I do. I don't try to manipulate an outcome that would make the client or me happier. If that outcome occurs, which it frequently does occur, where the client and I are both happy with the outcome, then that's great. But that's not the focus of the intention of having a specific outcome. That's the focus of intention that whatever the outcome is, be of the highest good. And if it happens to turn out that it's an outcome that the client and I like, then we can both, give each other high tens or whatever. Okay, that's good enough for today. We'll just see how this goes through the, checking for, community standards and that stuff that goes on with all of these social interactive groups. What those standards are and who makes them up and what they're meant to do. Are they meant to really support freedom of consciousness, sovereignty of speech? Or are they meant to just have the world riled up by certain things that they just let go? Oh yeah, we like this, it's riling the world up. Or this is too much clear information and we don't want that clear information because it takes away from the world being riled up. So I don't know how it all works. I'm just watching it, observing it, and I'm supporting the healing of the world. Humanity, animals, trees, plants, the ocean, the fish, the mammals, the Yeah. Memories. Having good memories. Yeah. And keeping opening to just keeping our consciousness expanding so it just links up with the one consciousness, the higher consciousness. And then we just become, our lives become outworkings of that higher consciousness. And that's my intention. That's set. And may this video do you a world of good. And may all things work together to perfection, whatever perfection is. And I don't know what it is. I just have to accept it. Okay, this is perfect right now. And as always, now must go. It's been a pleasure. And may all of our healing be gentle and without too much effort. Now must go.